Picture the scene. You're in your mother's kitchen on Christmas Eve, an apron tied around your waist, flour dusting your hands, while 25 guests laugh it up in the next room. Your mother steps in, glances at the untouched stove, and gives you that look. Only 25 people this year. Why haven't you even started? That was me on December 23, 2024. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't tell her I run a $4 million company she's never once asked about. Instead, I smiled, slipped off my apron, and booked a one-way flight to Miami, leaving an empty kitchen and a Christmas dinner that would never happen. My name is Lily Septon. I'm 37, and this is the story of how I finally quit being my family's unpaid help. If you're watching, hit subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. 15 years earlier, on my first Christmas as an adult, 2009, I was 22, freshly graduated with a communications degree and zero job prospects. The economy had just tanked, and I was back in my childhood bedroom in Denver, firing off resumes that vanished without a trace. That December evening, my parents' house smelled like pine and cinnamon. Mom had trimmed every surface with garlands, candles, and her collection of porcelain angels. 15 guests were expected for dinner, aunts, uncles, cousins, and a handful of my father's business contacts. "Lily, you've got dinner covered?" Mom said, arranging flowers in the dining room. It wasn't a question, it was an assignment. I looked up from my laptop, mid-cover letter. The whole meal, for 15 people? Sarah has finals coming up. She can't be pulled away. My sister was 18, a freshman at the University of Colorado, sprawled on the couch scrolling her phone, definitely not studying. "I have applications to finish," I said carefully. "There's a marketing opening at a firm downtown." Mom's tone hardened into the voice that meant the discussion was closed. "This is family. Family comes first." That was the first clue that the rules were different for me. Sarah got a pass. I got a task list. I spent the next 2 days practically living in that kitchen. I roasted a massive turkey, whipped mashed potatoes from scratch, made green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and 2 pies. I set the table, polished every fork, and arranged the centerpiece myself. By the time guests arrived Christmas Eve, I was still in the kitchen, apron streaked with gravy. My father stood in the living room, scotch in hand, introducing Sarah to his business partner, Harold Thompson. "This is my youngest, Sarah, studying marketing at CU, going to take over the company one day." Harold shook her hand warmly. "Following in your father's footsteps, wonderful." I walked past them with a tray of appetizers. Dad glanced at me, then turned back to Harold without a word. Second clue, Sarah was the future. I was furniture. "Who made these?" Harold's wife, Grace, picked up a stuffed mushroom. "These are incredible." "Oh, that's just Lily," Mom said, waving a hand. "She's got the time, no job yet." Grace gave me a sympathetic look, but I'd already slipped back toward the kitchen. That pattern repeated at every holiday after Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, anniversaries, birthdays. I was always behind the scenes, cooking or cleaning. Sarah was always at the table, charming the room, front and center. By 2012, I'd launched my own event planning business. I called it Stellar Events. I was good at logistics, vendor management, building experiences, skills I'd honestly picked up in my parents' kitchen. When I mentioned it to Mom, she barely looked up from her magazine. "Event planning, like kids' birthday parties?" "Actually, corporate launches, galas, conferences." "That's nice, dear. Can you grab the dry cleaning on your way home?" She never brought it up again. Neither did Dad. Neither did Sarah. So eventually, I stopped mentioning it at all. For 12 years I built Stellar Events quietly. My first big client came in 2014, a tech startup that paid $8,000 for their launch event. By 2018 I had 5 employees and an office downtown. By 2022 I was running events for Fortune 500 companies. But whenever I visited my parents, I still wore jeans and a plain sweater. I drove my old Honda instead of the new Audi. I never once mentioned the 23 people on my payroll or the 4.2 million in revenue we'd pulled in during 2024. Why would I? Nobody asked, and I was done offering up things that would just get brushed aside. Last Thanksgiving, November 2024, was especially rough. I'd just closed a deal with a major hotel chain worth $600,000. I was drained but riding high. Then I walked through my parents' front door and Mom handed me an apron. Turkey needs basting every 30 minutes, I made you a schedule. 23 employees reported to me. I negotiated with CEOs. I'd been profiled in 3 trade publications. And my mother handed me a basting timetable. I took the apron anyway. I basted the turkey. I served 18 people while Sarah talked at length about her demanding role as marketing director at Dad's company. A title she'd been handed, not earned. Sarah's doing incredible work, Dad said proudly. Revenue's up 12% this year. I could have mentioned my company's revenue was up 31%. What was the point? They'd have found a way to shrink it. They always did. After dinner, elbow deep in dishwater, I made a decision. This would be my last holiday playing family servant. I didn't yet know how I'd break the cycle, I just knew I was done. 15 years of being overlooked was enough. I dried my hands, hung up the apron, and drove home to the apartment my family had never once visited, because they'd never asked to see it. 2 weeks later, on December 22nd, my phone buzzed with a notification that would change everything. An email from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings. December 22, 2024, 9:47 a.m. I was in my corner office at Stellar Events, watching snow drift past the floor-to-ceiling windows. The Denver skyline sparkled in the winter light, my desk buried under vendor contracts, seating charts, and a half-finished coffee. Marcus Rivera, my CFO and closest friend, knocked on the glass door. 51, silver-haired, unshakable, he'd seen every crisis a small business could throw at him and survived all of them. He'd mentored me since 2015, back when Stellar was just me and a laptop. You need to see this, he said, sliding his tablet across the desk. It was an email from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, a hospitality and real estate conglomerate worth $3.8 billion. Subject line, Partnership Proposal, Exclusive Event Services 2025. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Meridian wanted an exclusive contract with Stellar Events, every corporate function, client dinner, product launch, and investor gala for the entire year. They'd already reviewed our portfolio, called our references, done their homework. Proposed value, $2.1 million. This is real? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Marcus nodded. I confirmed it with their legal team myself. It's real, but there's a catch. There's always a catch. Victoria wants to meet you face to face before she signs anything. She doesn't do business with people she hasn't looked in the eye. He paused. The meeting's set for December 24th, 11 a.m., at their Miami headquarters. Christmas Eve. Can we push it? I asked. She flies to Switzerland on the 26th, won't be back until mid-January. Marcus leaned in. Lily, if we don't close by the 24th, they move to their backup. Lux Affairs has been courting them for months. Lux Affairs, my biggest rival, who'd spent the year trying to poach my clients. I understood exactly what was at stake. This wasn't just a contract, it was a statement. Meridian was the kind of client that opened every door. Referrals through their partners, their investors, their entire network. It meant breaking into the Florida market. It meant Stellar Events becoming a national name instead of a regional one. And if I lost this to Lux Affairs, the industry would notice. Clients would wonder why Meridian passed on us. Momentum would shift. 12 years of reputation building could start unraveling. There's something else, Marcus said, pulling up another email. She mentioned your Forbes feature. I scrolled down and found the line that made me catch my breath. I was impressed by your profile in Forbes's 30 Under 40 Event Entrepreneurs list. Your approach to sustainable event design aligns with Meridian's values. I look forward to meeting the woman behind stellar events. The Forbes piece had run in October. 2 hours of interviews, photos in my office, extensive quotes about innovation in the industry. They'd called me a quiet force reshaping corporate gatherings. I'd never shown it to my family. What would be the point? Mom would find something to criticize, Dad would compare it to his numbers, Sarah would roll her eyes. But Victoria Caldwell had read it. Victoria Caldwell was impressed. Book my flight, I said. Marcus was already typing. Done. You leave tomorrow night, December 23rd, 8:45 p.m. Land in Miami 1:30 a.m. Rooms booked at the Fontainebleau. Meetings at 11 sharp. I nodded, feeling the familiar mix of nerves and adrenaline that comes before a big deal. But this time something else was stirring underneath it. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Call me. Important. I stared at those 2 words. In my experience, important from my mother meant one of 2 things: somebody was sick or she needed something. Since I hadn't heard about any illness, option 2 seemed far more likely. I should have ignored it and focused on the biggest opportunity of my career. But 15 years of conditioning doesn't evaporate overnight. The part of me that still craved her approval, that still hoped this time would be different, picked up the phone. Mom answered on the first ring. Finally. I've been trying to reach you all morning. It was 10:15 a.m. She'd sent exactly 1 text. What's going on? I asked, keeping my tone even. Christmas plans changed. Sarah's friends are joining us this year, 25 people total. 25 people. A number that would thrill me professionally. A number that terrified me personally. That's a lot, I said. Which is why I need you here early tomorrow. Cooking, decorating, all of it. Sarah's too swamped with work. And there it was. I gripped the phone tighter. Through the glass, I could see Marcus watching me, concerned. Mom, I can't. I have a work trip. A work trip? On Christmas? It's important. I'm flying to Miami tomorrow night. She laughed, actually laughed. Miami, for what? Some little party you're throwing? Some little party. $2.1 million. The biggest deal of my career. It's a significant client meeting. Lily, please. We both know your little freelance thing can wait. This is family. There it was again, family, the word she deployed like a weapon whenever she wanted something. I can't cancel this trip. Can't, or won't? My jaw tightened. Both. Silence on the line, then a sharp intake of breath, the warm-up for the guilt trip I knew was coming. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to make this Christmas special? Sarah's under so much pressure at work, she needs this. And her friends are important people, potential clients for your father. This isn't just a dinner party, Lily, this is networking. Networking, for Sarah, for Dad's business. Never for me. Mom, I understand, but you're being selfish. You always have been. Sarah gives and gives to this family, and you can't even cook one meal. I closed my eyes. 15 years of these calls. 15 years of being told I was selfish for wanting boundaries, selfish for having a life, selfish for existing outside their expectations. My answer is no. What did you just say? I said no. I won't be there tomorrow. I won't be cooking for 25 people. I have a meeting that can't be moved. Her voice dropped to a hiss. What meeting could possibly matter more than your family? A contract worth over $2 million. Silence, just for a moment. I almost thought she'd heard me, that maybe this time she'd understand. Then she laughed again, dismissive, cutting. $2 million. Honestly, Lily, where do you come up with this stuff? You throw little corporate parties. You're not some business mogul. Something cracked inside me, not broke, cracked. A fault line 15 years in the making finally gave way. You don't know anything about what I do. I know enough. I know you're 37, unmarried, with no real career. I know you've wasted years on this little hobby while your sister built an actual future. And I know that whenever family needs you, you're never there. Every word landed with precision, meant to wound. Marcus stood up from his desk, watching me through the glass. He'd heard enough of these calls over the years to know exactly what was happening. I'm going to Miami, I said quietly. You'll have to figure out dinner without me. If you walk out on this family, don't bother coming back. I should have felt gutted. Instead, I felt relief. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. For a long moment I just sat there, phone in hand, staring out at the skyline. My heart was racing, but my head felt strangely clear. Marcus appeared in the doorway. You okay? She wanted me to skip Miami and cook Christmas Eve dinner for 25 people. When I said no, she told me not to bother coming back. He sat down across from my desk. He'd been there since the early days, when Stellar was nothing but a dream and a spreadsheet. He'd watched me build something real while my family wrote it off as a hobby. Lily, I've known you 9 years. I've watched you negotiate million-dollar deals. I've watched you handle crises that would break most people. You're one of the most capable executives I know. He paused. But the second family comes up, you shrink. I looked away. He wasn't wrong. This is the moment, he said. You can keep folding yourself to fit their expectations, or you can pick your own path. You can't do both. My phone buzzed again, Sarah. Mom's crying. Thanks a lot. You couldn't put family first for one day. So selfish. I typed back, I have work commitments. Her reply came instantly, work? What work? You plan birthday parties. Get over yourself. I could have argued. I could have explained. Instead, I deleted the thread. Book the flight, I told Marcus. I'm going to Miami. He nodded, already heading for the door, then paused. Lily, you're making the right call. For what it's worth. That night I went home to my apartment, a 2-bedroom loft with exposed brick and mountain views, $3,000 a month, the place my family had never seen because they'd never asked. I packed a carry-on, a suit for the meeting, comfortable clothes for the flight, my laptop, contracts, presentation materials. And one more thing, the October issue of Forbes with my face on page 47. I couldn't tell you exactly why I packed it. Maybe as proof. Maybe as armor. Maybe just to remind myself I hadn't imagined any of it, that I'd built something real. At 8:45 p.m. on December 23, my flight lifted off from Denver, climbing through the snow clouds toward Miami. Somewhere below, my family was probably fuming in the living room over my absence. Let them fume. I had a contract to sign. The flight runs about 4 hours. I spent most of it reviewing the Meridian paperwork, scribbling notes in the margins, anticipating every question Victoria might throw at me. But somewhere over Texas around midnight, I pulled out the Forbes issue instead. The cover featured a tech CEO I didn't recognize, but on page 47 there I was, full-page photo, arms crossed, the Denver skyline behind me. Lily Septon, the quiet force behind stellar events. I read the opening line for what felt like the 20th time. In an industry dominated by loud personalities and flashy self-promotion, Lily Septon has built a $4 million event empire through meticulous attention to detail and an almost uncanny sense of what clients need before they ask. I don't believe in showing off, Septon says from her corner office in downtown Denver. I believe in showing up. The piece went into our growth, our 93% client retention rate, our shift towards sustainable event practices. 3 CEOs were quoted calling me indispensable, the best in the business. My family had no idea any of it existed. I'd thought about showing them, for maybe 5 minutes. Then I pictured Mom's reaction, something about how tired the photo made me look, or how I should have worn more makeup, or how Sarah's friend had been in a magazine once too, no big deal. So I kept it to myself. I tucked the magazine away as we began our descent. Miami's lights sprawled out below like scattered jewels, and that familiar pre-meeting adrenaline kicked in. My phone buzzed as we taxied to the gate, a new email from Victoria, sent at 11:47 p.m. Subject, contract, final signing details. Dear Miss Septon, just confirming our meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please bring 2 forms of ID for notarization. Our legal team will have the final contract ready to sign. I've attached our standard NDA and preliminary terms. My assistant is available at the number below for any questions. I look forward to meeting the woman behind stellar events. Best, Victoria Caldwell, CEO, Meridian Holdings. I saved the email and screenshotted it for good measure, documentation habits from someone who'd learned the hard way that words mean nothing without a paper trail. The Fontainebleau was exactly as advertised. Art Deco elegance, ocean views, a lobby that practically whispered money. I checked in at 2 a.m., collapsed into a king bed, and slept 6 hours. When I woke on December 24th, I had 11 new texts, 4 from Mom, 3 from Sarah, 2 from Dad, 2 from unknown numbers probably belonging to relatives I had no interest in talking to. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I showered, put on my best charcoal suit, and went over my notes one more time. At 10:30 a.m. I took a rideshare to Meridian's headquarters, a glass tower catching the December sun like a beacon. The receptionist checked my ID and handed me a visitor badge. Ms. Caldwell's expecting you, 40th floor. The elevator ride felt endless, my pulse hammering. This was it. But as I climbed, my phone buzzed again, Sarah, calling. I declined. Then a voicemail. Against my better judgment, I listened. Lily, it's Sarah. Mom's having a meltdown. None of the caterers will come on Christmas Eve, shocker. Dad's calling in every favor he's got and nobody can help. Victoria Caldwell is supposed to be at our dinner tonight and we have nothing to serve. This is your fault, if you just, I cut it off. Replayed one line. Victoria Caldwell is supposed to be at our dinner tonight. I stared at the phone as the elevator dinged open. Victoria Caldwell, the woman I was about to meet, was going to my parents' house for Christmas dinner. How was that even possible? The doors opened onto a marble foyer. A woman in a navy dress approached with a polished smile. Miss Septon, Ms. Caldwell's ready for you, right this way. I followed her down a hallway lined with awards and photographs, my mind racing. Victoria knew my parents, or at least she'd been invited to their table, which meant she knew Sarah, or Dad. Someone had connected them, probably through business circles. Denver's smaller than people think in certain industries. Did she know I was Richard Septon's daughter? Did she know that the family hosting her tonight was the same family I'd just walked away from? The assistant opened a door onto a corner conference room with sweeping views of Biscayne Bay. A long table dominated the space, legal documents spread across it. At the head of the table stood Victoria Caldwell, early 50s, silver-haired, with the sharp, assessing eyes of someone who'd built an empire from scratch. Cream blazer, pearl earrings, a firm handshake. Miss Septon, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. The pleasure's mine, Ms. Caldwell. She gestured to a chair. Shall we get started? I've got a flight to Denver this afternoon. Denver. My stomach dropped. I sat, opened my folder, and prepared to sign the most important contract of my career, trying very hard not to think about what would happen when Victoria Caldwell walked into my parents' house that night. Before I get into what happened next, have you ever felt overlooked by your own family? Dismissed, ignored, made to feel invisible? Type 1 in the comments if you have. If you've ever set a boundary and stood by it, type 2. And if you want to see what happened when Victoria showed up at my parents' door, hit that like button and subscribe. Back to the story. Signing the contract took 45 minutes. Victoria was meticulous. She went through every clause, asked sharp questions about our capacity, our vendor relationships, our contingency plans. I answered each one with the confidence of somebody who'd spent 12 years preparing for exactly this moment. At 11:52 a.m., we both signed contract number MH20241223. A photographer caught the handshake, the Miami skyline glittering behind us. Her assistant notarized everything and handed me my copy in a leather folder stamped with the Meridian logo. "Welcome to the Meridian family," Victoria said, smiling. "I have a feeling this partnership is going to be exceptional." Couldn't agree more. We traded a few pleasantries before her assistant gently reminded her about the flight. "I'm actually spending Christmas Eve with some business contacts in Denver," Victoria mentioned, gathering her things. "The Septons, know them?" "Richard runs a construction supply company. His daughter Sarah's quite impressive." My throat tightened. "I've heard the name. Richard's a potential investor on a project we're developing. His wife invited me to their Christmas dinner." She laughed lightly. "Normally I'd say no, but I'm curious about the operation, and apparently the food's spectacular." The food. The food I was supposed to have cooked. I kept my face neutral. "Hope you have a good time." She paused at the door, studying me. "You know, there's something familiar about you, Miss Septon." "The name, maybe." "Any relation to the Denver Septons?" This was the moment. I could have told her everything, that Richard and Margaret were my parents, that Sarah was my sister, that I'd spent 15 years as their unpaid caterer while building the company she'd just committed $2.1 million to. I didn't. "It's a common enough name," I said instead. She nodded, seemingly satisfied, and left. I sat alone in that conference room for a long while after, the signed contract heavy in my hands. She had no idea that the spectacular food at tonight's dinner was supposed to have been mine to make. No idea that the family hosting her had spent years treating my career like a punchline. And tonight, when she showed up to no dinner, no caterer, no last-minute miracle, what then? Some dark corner of me wanted to watch it unfold, my mother scrambling, my father making excuses, my sister's polished image cracking. But a bigger part of me just felt exhausted. Done with the drama, done with getting pulled back into their orbit, done measuring my worth by their reactions. I had what I'd come for. The contract was signed. My company's future was locked in. Whatever happened in Denver that night wasn't my problem anymore. I flew home that afternoon, landing in Denver at 6:47 p.m., right when the Septon Christmas dinner was supposed to start. I took a car straight to my apartment, ordered Thai food, and shut off my phone. For the first time in 15 years, I spent Christmas Eve completely alone. It was peaceful. I had no idea yet what was unfolding at my parents' house. I wouldn't hear the full story until the next morning, pieced together from Grace Thompson and a couple of other guests who were there. At 5:30 p.m., Margaret Septon walked into her kitchen expecting the usual, trays of appetizers, a turkey in the oven, pots on every burner. Instead, nothing. Cold stove, bare counters, no Lily. "Richard." Her voice carried through the house. My father appeared, still adjusting his tie. "What's wrong? Where's the food? Where's Lily? I thought you said she was handling it. She was supposed to be here hours ago." Sarah came down the stairs in a red cocktail dress. "What's going on? Why is everyone yelling? Your sister abandoned us. There's no dinner." The next hour was chaos. Calls to every caterer in Denver, all booked or closed for the holiday, a frantic run to the grocery store where the prepared foods section had already been picked clean. My father called in favors at 3 restaurants, all 3 declined politely. By 6 o'clock, when guests started arriving, the Septon dining table held this: 2 store-bought rotisserie chickens, 3 bags of pre-mixed salad, a Costco cheese platter, and dinner rolls still in their plastic. Grace Thompson. The same woman who'd complimented my stuffed mushrooms 15 years earlier, stood in the living room surveying the wreckage. "Margaret, everything all right? You seemed flustered." "Everything's fine," Mom said, smile brittle. "Little catering mix-up, last-minute changes." 25 guests mingled awkwardly. The house looked flawless, decorated to the last detail, but the food told a different story entirely. This wasn't the elegant dinner my mother had promised. It was a disaster barely papered over with string lights. At 7:15 p.m., Victoria Caldwell arrived, sweeping into the room with the ease of someone used to commanding attention. Pearl earrings catching the light, she shook Richard's hand, complimented Margaret's decorations, traded pleasantries with Sarah. "Thank you so much for having me," she said warmly. "I've heard wonderful things about your Christmas dinners." Mom's smile tightened. "This year's a bit different, some unexpected hiccups." Victoria's eyes flicked toward the rotisserie chicken sitting in sad splendor on the table. Her expression stayed politely neutral, though I imagine her opinion of the Septon's competence was quietly revising itself. Dad steered conversation toward business. Mom poured wine generously. Sarah worked the room, trying to distract from the obvious. Then Grace Thompson said the words that unraveled everything. Scrolling her phone, LinkedIn, probably, she stopped mid-scroll. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for the nearby group to hear. "Richard, Margaret, come look at this." She held up a LinkedIn post published just hours earlier, a photo of Victoria shaking hands with someone, caption "Thrilled to announce our partnership with Stellar Events and the brilliant Lily Septon. Looking forward to an incredible 2025. Hashtag Meridian Holdings Hashtag Event Planning Hashtag Forbes 30 Under 40. Grace looked up, confused. "Wait, Lily Septon? Isn't that your daughter?" The room went quiet. Not entirely, there was still music playing, glasses clinking somewhere, but the circle around Grace fell into a genuine hush. My mother stared at the screen, color draining from her face. My father leaned in, squinting. "What is this, some kind of mix-up?" "That's Lily," Grace said, zooming in. "You're shaking hands with Victoria Caldwell in what looks like a very fancy office." Victoria stepped closer, peering at the post herself. Her expression shifted. Recognition, then surprise, then something I can only call delighted amusement. "Lily Septon," she said slowly. "Your daughter is Lily Septon, the founder of Stellar Events." Margaret's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Yes, Lily's our daughter, but I don't understand, what's Stellar Events?" Victoria laughed, a genuine sound that cut straight through the tension. "Margaret, Stellar Events is one of the most successful event planning firms in the Rocky Mountain region. I signed a $2.1 million contract with them this morning." $2.1 million. The number hung in the air like a live grenade. Richard went white. $2 million? That's more than our company's annual profit. Your daughter has built something remarkable, Victoria continued, apparently oblivious to the wreckage she was causing. I read her profile in Forbes back in October. Genuinely inspiring, her approach to sustainable event design is years ahead of the industry. Forbes? Sarah's voice cracked. Lily was in Forbes? Grace was already scrolling. Right here, October issue. Lily Septon, the quiet force behind Stellar Events. There's a whole feature. She turned her screen around, a photo of me in my office, arms crossed, staring straight at the camera. Confident. Successful. Everything my family had convinced themselves I wasn't. More guests drifted over, drawn by the commotion, phones passing hand to hand, excerpts read aloud. It says she's got 23 employees. Her company did over $4 million in revenue this year. This line's incredible. I don't believe in showing off. I believe in showing up. My mother stood frozen in the middle of the chaos, her carefully staged Christmas coming apart around her. Why didn't she tell us? Margaret murmured, mostly to herself. Perhaps, Victoria said gently, you never asked. The silence that followed was brutal. Grace Thompson, 15 years of Septon Christmas dinners under her belt, spoke next. You know, Margaret, I always wondered about Lily. Always in the kitchen, always working, and you barely mentioned her. Whenever I asked, you changed the subject. Other guests murmured agreement. She always seemed so capable, Grace went on. Remember those stuffed mushrooms years ago? Best I've ever had. I should have guessed she'd do something with that talent. Harold Thompson stepped in. Richard, I had no idea your daughter ran a $4 million company. Why on earth didn't you say something? We could have done business. My father had no answer. Sarah, meanwhile, had gone from pale to crimson, clutching her wine glass like a lifeline, her hostess' composure cracking. She never said anything, she muttered. She let us think what? Victoria asked, eyebrow raised. That she was unsuccessful. That her work didn't matter. Sarah's mouth snapped shut. Victoria surveyed the room with the calm of a CEO who'd just solved a puzzle. I met Lily this morning. She was professional, prepared, one of the most impressive young executives I've come across. We talked for nearly an hour before signing. She paused. She never once mentioned she was related to you. Another blow landed. Margaret's hand shook as she set down her glass. She didn't tell you we're her family? I asked if she was related to the Denver Septons. She said it was a common name. The implications sank in. Lily hadn't claimed them, hadn't wanted the association, had hidden the connection entirely, not out of shame about herself, but for reasons that clearly ran much deeper. Oh my God, Grace breathed. That's why she's not here tonight. She was in Miami, signing this. While you expected her to cook for 25 people, Harold added, tone cooling. Richard's face had gone from pale to purple. Now, hold on, this is a family matter. Is it? Victoria said. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been treating a highly successful businesswoman like household staff. And the one time she had something that actually mattered, a contract with my company, no less, you expected her to choose dinner rolls over her career. The silence was total. Somewhere, Silent Night played on, faintly ironic. Victoria turned to my parents with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I think I understand now why Lily kept the connection to herself. Please pass along my regards, and my thanks. If she hadn't stepped away from this dinner, we might never have met. She set down her untouched wine. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a morning flight to Switzerland. Thank you both for the invitation, it was illuminating. She left without a backward glance. The front door clicked shut, and the room erupted. Guests clustered in whispering knots, trading Forbes headlines and million-dollar figures and the daughter the Septons had never once mentioned. My mother sank into a chair, her party in ruins. My father retreated to his study and shut the door hard. Sarah fled upstairs, presumably to cry, or rage, or both. Meanwhile, across town, I was on my couch with pad thai and Netflix, completely unaware of the reckoning happening in my parents' living room. I wouldn't hear the full account until December 26th, when Grace Thompson called me directly. Lily, I owe you an apology. I've known your family 15 years and never once asked what you actually did for work. That was wrong of me. It's okay, Grace. You're not the one who owes an apology. Maybe not. But I want you to know, what Victoria said about you being one of the most impressive executives she'd met, everyone in that room heard it. Everyone knows now. She paused. Your parents have some explaining to do, and I don't think this town's going to let them forget it anytime soon. A small, petty part of me felt satisfaction. A much bigger part just felt tired. Thank you for telling me, Grace. Of course. And congratulations on the contract, you've clearly worked incredibly hard. You deserve every bit of it. Nobody in my family had ever said those words to me. It took a near stranger to say them first. Christmas night in Miami was warm and still. I sat on my hotel balcony at the Fontainebleau, watching moonlight streak the Atlantic. Room service, steak, roasted vegetables, a glass of red, sat beside the contract folder, its weight strangely comforting. My phone had been off since I landed. 15 missed calls, 32 texts, 6 voicemails, all from family I had zero interest in speaking to. But now, contract signed and future secured, I felt ready, not to forgive, not to reconcile, just ready to be clear. I turned the phone back on and watched the notifications pour in. Mom, 6:47 p.m., call me immediately. Mom, 7:23 p.m., Lily, this is serious. Victoria Caldwell knows about you. Mom, 8:15 p.m., how could you humiliate us like this in front of everyone? Mom, 9:02 p.m., please call, we need to talk. Sarah, 7:45 p.m., are you kidding me right now? Sarah, 8:30 p.m., you made us look like idiots in front of 25 people. Sarah, 10:17 p.m., Mom's having a breakdown, are you happy? Dad, 9:45 p.m. Lily, we need to talk about what happened. This isn't how family should work. I read every message without feeling much of anything. The manipulation was so transparent, the guilt trips, the blame shifting, not a shred of accountability. Not one message congratulating me on the contract. Not one acknowledging I'd built something worth celebrating. Not one apology for 15 years of being dismissed. My phone rang, Marcus. Hey. Merry Christmas, Lily. How are you holding up? Better than expected. I took a sip of wine. Contracts signed. Victoria was incredible. I heard, she emailed our team after the meeting. Said you were even more impressive in person than on paper. He paused. Also heard about Denver. News travels fast, her assistant mentioned the Septon Christmas dinner was quite the spectacle. I actually laughed, maybe my first real laugh in days. I can only imagine. Lily, listen, you made the right call. You chose your career, your company, your future. You don't owe them a thing. I know. And for the first time, I actually believed it. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started an email, not a rant, not an accusation, just a clear, professional message, the kind I'd send a difficult client. To Richard Septon, Margaret Septon, Sarah Septon. Subject, regarding Christmas, and going forward. I chose every word carefully. I signed a $2.1 million contract with Meridian Holdings today. That's why I wasn't at Christmas dinner. For 15 years I've cooked and cleaned for every family gathering while my career got dismissed as a hobby. When I told Mom I had an important meeting, she laughed. When I set a boundary, I was called selfish. I'm not selfish for prioritizing my work. I'm not ungrateful for having standards. I'm not a failure because my success doesn't match your idea of one. I won't apologize for choosing myself. I'm open to rebuilding this relationship, but only on certain terms. I will no longer be treated as the family caterer. I will be treated as an equal, not an afterthought. My career gets acknowledged, not dismissed. If those terms don't work for you, I understand, but I won't go back to how things were. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk. Lily. I read it 3 times, revised one line, and hit send. For a long time I just sat there watching the waves. Nobody replied that night. I didn't expect them to, they needed time to process that the daughter they'd overlooked had outgrown their expectations entirely. Marcus had called it right. This was a turning point, not just professionally, but personally. I finished my wine as the moon climbed higher over Miami Beach. Tomorrow I'd fly home and walk into my office as the CEO who'd just landed the biggest contract in Stellar Events history. I'd build on it, expand into new markets, hire more people. And my family would have to decide, did they want a relationship with Lily Septon, CEO and founder, or only the version of Lily who stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed in the kitchen? I already knew my answer. The question was whether they were capable of giving theirs. I want to pause here. If any of this is hitting close to home, if you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, taken for granted by people who were supposed to love you most, go ahead and hit subscribe, turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, should I forgive my family or hold the line on the boundaries I've set? Now, here's what happened next. The fallout started on December 26th and spread outward like ripples from a dropped stone. Victoria's LinkedIn post had been shared 2,347 times by the time I checked that morning, comments full of congratulations, industry contacts reaching out, potential clients expressing interest. 3 hours after she posted, Entrepreneur magazine emailed asking for an interview about rising stars in the event industry. My inbox filled with 6 separate partnership inquiries from companies I'd been trying to connect with for years. The Meridian deal hadn't just secured our future, it had announced us to the world. Back in Denver, the ripples looked very different. Grace Thompson posted on Facebook that afternoon, no names, but everyone in their circle knew exactly who she meant. This Christmas, I learned something important: never underestimate the people in your own family. Sometimes the most successful person in the room is the one nobody's paying attention to. The post picked up 287 likes and 43 comments, several tagging my parents indirectly with pointed questions about supporting your children's dreams. Margaret's phone started ringing off the hook, women from her charity board, her book club, her garden society, all calling with thinly veiled curiosity about the Forbes thing. I heard your daughter's quite the businesswoman. Why didn't you ever mention how successful she is? My mother had spent years curating an image: devoted wife, supportive mother, pillar of the community. That image now had visible cracks. My father faced his own reckoning. Harold Thompson called him on December 27. Richard, I've been thinking about that expansion project we discussed. I'd like to bring in an event planning partner for the launch. Of course, my father said, probably sensing an opening. Who did you have in mind? Lily's company. Stellar Events. Saw her Forbes profile, very impressive. Silence. I was hoping you could make the introduction. My father, who had never once introduced me to a single business contact, who had spent 15 years treating my career as invisible, was now being asked to broker a meeting. I'll see what I can do, he said. Harold didn't wait around, he found my business email that same afternoon and sent a formal inquiry. I replied within 2 hours with a proposal. Richard Septon was no longer the gatekeeper. Sarah's situation was messier, and, if I'm honest, more satisfying. She'd spent months courting Meridian Holdings, hoping to position Dad's company as a supplier for their Denver developments. Networking events, strategic emails, casting herself as the family's business ambassador. None of it mattered anymore. On December 28, Sarah reached out to Victoria's office requesting a follow-up meeting about partnership opportunities. The reply was polite but final: Ms. Caldwell's calendar is fully booked through Q1. For future inquiries, please use our standard vendor application process. Translation: not a priority. Sarah had spent years riding the wave of parental favoritism, assuming her spot as the successful daughter was untouchable. In 72 hours, that identity had come apart. I didn't feel joy about her pain, but I won't pretend I felt sorry either. As for me, the momentum kept building. By December 30th, I'd locked in 3 new client meetings for January, turned down 2 competing job offers, been approached by a literary agent interested in a memoir about entrepreneurial grit, and projected a 35% revenue jump for 2025 off the Meridian deal alone. Marcus summed it up perfectly on our call that morning. Lily, you've been working toward this for 12 years. Every late night, every impossible client, every sacrifice, it all led here. You've earned this. I finally believed him. The most unexpected development, though, came from an unlikely place. On December 29th, a letter showed up at my apartment, not an email, an actual handwritten letter, overnight delivery, my parents' return address. My father's handwriting. I nearly didn't open it. What could he possibly say that would matter? Curiosity won. Dear Lily, I've spent the last 4 days trying to understand how I missed what was right in front of me. You built a company. A real company, with employees, clients, revenue that outpaces my own, and I didn't know, because I never asked. I told myself I was a good father, that I supported both my daughters equally. But the truth is, I saw what I expected to see. I expected Sarah to succeed, so I looked for her successes. I expected you to struggle, so that's all I noticed. I was wrong, deeply, badly wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I want you to know I see you now. I see what you've built, and I'm proud, late, imperfectly, but genuinely proud, of the woman you've become. If you're open to it, I'd like the chance to actually learn about stellar events, to understand your work, to know my daughter. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. Your father, Richard. I read it 3 times, then set it on the counter and made coffee. I wasn't ready to answer yet. A letter doesn't undo 15 years. Words don't erase actions. But it was, at least, a start. New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2024. I stood at my window watching fireworks bloom over downtown Denver, the city glittering through the final minutes of a year that had rewritten itself entirely. My phone sat silent on the counter, new boundaries there too. Muted group chats, calls I wasn't ready to take, replies on my own schedule instead of theirs. Dad's letter still sat by the coffee maker, read a dozen times over 2 days, each pass stirring something different. Anger, sadness, hope, doubt. At 11:47 p.m., I finally picked up the phone and called him. He answered on the first ring. Lily. Hi, Dad. A long pause, I could hear Mom in the background asking who it was. He didn't answer her. Thank you for calling, he said finally. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. I kept my voice level, professional. But I've been thinking about what comes next. So have I. I'm willing to try to rebuild something, but not the way things were. I understand. I mean it. No more playing family caterer. No more brushing off my work. No more treating me like I'm invisible while Sarah gets the spotlight. I took a breath. If I come to family events, I come as a guest, an equal, not staff. That's fair. More than fair. And I need you to actually ask about my life. Not assume you already know. Ask about my company, my clients, my goals. Be interested. Another pause, his voice rougher when he spoke again. I should have been doing that all along. Yes. You should have. The silence stretched, full of 15 years' worth of unsaid things. But for the first time it didn't feel hostile, just tired. Your mother, Dad said carefully, is struggling with this. She's not ready to admit she was wrong. Not yet. I know. I'd gotten nothing from Margaret, no letter, no call, just one brittle text, Happy New Year. Hope you're well. Polite on the surface, resentful underneath. Give her time, Dad said. I've given her 15 years. He had no reply to that. I'll come to dinner next week, I said finally. Sunday. But I'm coming as a guest. Someone else can cook. I'll order from that Italian place you used to love. A small gesture, but a start. After we hung up, I stood at the window watching the clock tick toward midnight. In a few minutes it would be 2025, a new chapter. Victoria's contract was signed. Harold's proposal sat in my inbox. Entrepreneur wanted an interview. My company was headed into its biggest year yet. And my family, the people who had overlooked me for so long, finally saw me. Not because I forced them to. Not because I screamed or fought or demanded it. But because I walked away. Because I chose myself. Because I let success speak louder than any argument ever could. There's a line I love, I don't even remember who said it first, the best revenge is massive success. But I don't think of it as revenge anymore. Revenge means you're still tethered to the people who hurt you, still measuring yourself against their yardstick, still trying to prove something to them. What I did wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. The fireworks hit their peak at midnight. A text from Marcus: "Happy New Year, boss. 2025's going to be incredible." I typed back, "You're right. It already is." Then I opened a fresh document and started planning. Not the next event, not the next negotiation, but my boundaries, laid out clearly and professionally, the way I'd draft any business agreement. I will attend family gatherings as a guest, not staff. I will not accept disrespect dressed up as humor. I will not apologize for prioritizing my career. I will be treated as an equal, or I won't participate. I will respond to genuine attempts at connection and ignore manipulation. My time and energy are valuable, and I will spend them accordingly. Simple rules. Clear expectations. The boundaries I should have drawn 15 years ago. But here's what I've learned: it's never too late. You're never too far in, too old, too entrenched to break the pattern. The moment you decide you deserve better is the moment everything shifts. My parents aren't perfect, they may never fully grasp what they did or what it cost me. Sarah may never apologize. But that's not my problem to carry anymore. My problem is building the life I want, the career I've earned, the relationships I actually choose. And that's exactly what I intend to do. So that's my story: 15 years of being the family's unpaid help, ending with a $2.1 million contract signed while my family scrambled without me. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted, I want you to know your success doesn't need their approval. It doesn't need their acknowledgement. It only needs you to bet on yourself. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sticking with me through this story. If you've ever been overlooked by the people who were supposed to love you most, know this: you deserve respect. You deserve to be seen. Subscribe to the channel, check the description for more stories about boundaries and self-worth, and leave a comment. Have you ever had to choose yourself over your family's expectations? Until next time.